So welcome to our weekly Greenleaf Connect event in partnership with the Greenleaf Foundation. Today, we're honored to welcome Shirley Anne Smith, who is the Executive Director of the Atlanta Fire Rescue Foundation. And she'll be speaking to us today about women's history and her experience in becoming a successful female leader in today's society. First off, here at Greenleaf Connect, we hold a weekly forum for us to get together and talk about all things Greenleaf. Greenleaf Connect creates a space for us to be direct, informative, and build transparency for our audiences on specific and important topics like the ones we'll discuss today. As always, we like to review our rules of engagement for our time together. First, you can change your presentation view by moving the slider between the presentation and the speakers to make them bigger or smaller. We do ask that you mute yourself during the presentation portion of our meeting to avoid any feedback as we present. And we will hold a live Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so don't be shy. If you have any questions, more than likely someone else does too. And a friendly reminder that this session is being recorded and will be made available on the Greenleaf Connect workplace page for future reference. So on our agenda today, Shirley Anne will start us off with some background information on herself. Next, she'll give us an overview of the Atlanta Fire Rescue Foundation and some enlightening facts about the fire department. We'll then move into the topics of going against the grain and what actually brings success. We will conclude today's presentation with our live Q&A and some important upcoming dates. But before we turn it over to Shirley Anne, we'd like for you to get to know a little bit more about her and why we asked her to speak with us today. It's clear from the moment you meet Shirley Anne that her passion for service is evident. This is why she was selected from hundreds of candidates to be the very first executive director for the Atlanta Fire Rescue Foundation. She understands the importance of acceptance and the challenges of having barriers placed in your path. These barriers for some could be a deterrent, but for her, they are another reason to remind people that with courage, confidence, and character, she and you will make the world a better place. Whether it's being a first responder to City of Atlanta's first responders, Shirley Anne is like the famous quote, "She believed she could, so she did." Please join me in welcoming our Women History Month speaker, Shirley Anne Smith. Welcome, Shirley Anne. We're so excited to have you with us today.
Hello, everyone, and hello, Greenleaf. It's beyond an honor and a privilege to be here this afternoon. I stereotypically to myself, buenas tardes. It's truly an honor and a pleasure to be here. And so I wanted to share a little bit about myself and also my organization with you. And so if you will allow me, I'm going to start my presentation so that we can do that. Let's see. Natalie, are we good?
You're good to go.
Awesome, perfect. So as Natalie shared, I wanted to actually share a little bit about me so that before we go into the presentation, you could actually feel like you truly know me. Like I shared earlier in speaking Spanish, I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. And I am Latina everywhere I go, and with no matter what I do. I first actually moved to the United States at the age of 11, at which point I only spoke Spanish, and I moved from Puerto Rico to Miami, and I learned English while I was going through school in Miami. Shortly thereafter, I actually moved to Atlanta back in 2000, and this past February celebrated my 21st anniversary in Atlanta. So while I probably will never claim Atlanta as home, I have been here longer than any other part of my life, and truly am very grateful for the life that Atlanta has provided me. I actually went to school in the city of Atlanta, right downtown. So I went to Georgia State University, where I graduated with my bachelor's degree in journalism and also a bachelor's degree in sociology, where I focused in family and children. That in itself really drove me to focus in the nonprofit work, for which I have been working in nonprofits for 15 years, really through a career in Girl Scouts that then transitioned to a Latino organization called La Amistad, which provided after-school programming for Latino students, and then also provided parent programming for Latino parents who were here in the United States and also in the city of Atlanta as a first-generation arrival. And now I'm over at the Atlanta Fire Rescue Foundation, where my wonderful job allows me to really serve the men and women who work for the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. As of late, I have been very blessed in my career to be recognized for a lot of my achievements and just what we've been able to do at the Atlanta Fire Rescue Foundation. And that comes with some more recent awards, which is next month, I will actually receive my Georgia State University 40 under 40. I've also received the Atlanta Business Chronicles 40 under 40 alongside the Urban Trends 40 under 40. This year, I was actually named Outstanding Atlanta as the very first Latina president for the organization since its founding date of 1968. And if you don't know anything about Outstanding Atlanta is actually a nonprofit organization that highlights 10 individuals each year, but it's 10 young professionals that truly work to make the city of Atlanta and the region a better place to live, work, and play. And I am also a proud alumni of Lead Atlanta, and I am a 2017 grad, which our class, we are called the GOATs because we are the greatest of all time. A little bit about the work that I do at the Atlanta Fire Rescue Foundation. Sure, you probably never heard of us. We are a nonprofit organization that actually supports the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department, which is in itself a government entity. But the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department is a department of the city of Atlanta. So I work in the nonprofit space, but my job is to support a government entity. And in this particular case, it's really to support the 1,100 firefighters and EMTs that work within the city of Atlanta's fire department, which in this case is named the Atlanta Fire Rescue Department. The slogan for our organization is the first responders to the first responders. And what we mean by that is that when our firefighters and our EMTs need anything, I am their first 911 call. When they need any sort of resource, any sort of equipment, anything that they need to save someone's life, to make the department better, or to really improve public safety for the city of Atlanta, we are the organization that calls because our job is truly embedded in the fact that we're there to support them and make our communities safer by supporting them. We were founded in 2004. However, it was actually entirely volunteer led up until 2016, at which point I was hired to be the very first executive director of the organization and have been in my role since then. So I just celebrated my 5th year anniversary this past August. The way that we support by the fire department is truly in 3 areas. Workforce development is center to everything we do. We want to make sure that we understand what is it that it takes to recruit more firefighters to come into the industry, but also what it's going to take us to keep them. So we focus a lot on diversity, a lot on their professional development, a lot on their well-being, but most importantly now with just the way the industry is working, a lot on their mental health. We also work to improve what our fire stations look like and feel like. So fire stations are 24/7, 365 facilities. Our firefighters live there for 24 hours at a time when they go for their shift. And they spend a third of their lives inside of a fire station. And in the city of Atlanta, a lot of our fire stations were actually built during the civil rights time. They were built in the 1950s, 1960s, and then after in the 1970s. And so they're starting to look their age. And so my job as of late has been structured around what is it that we need to do as a community to improve our fire stations so that our firefighters can train in them, but they also have better live work facilities, but most importantly, that our community feels like we are maintaining our fire stations so they're assets to the community. But most importantly, we also want our communities to have relationship with firefighters. Most of our community only gets to interact with firefighters when they're young in age and you go through your elementary school and you have the firefighter come by for career day, and then you really never get to see them again. We want to change that. We don't want you to see a firefighter only when you have an emergency. We want you to know your firefighters that live and work in your community. We want you to know what they do. And then we also want you to just be able to share a meal with them if time allows. What the organization is really known for, I'm very, very proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish in very short time since I started in 2016. So I'll tell you a little bit about that. In 2019, we realized that we were just losing firefighters, and we we weren't losing firefighters out of the industry. We were losing firefighters to other areas, to Cobb County, to Gwinnett County, to South Fulton. And when we realized what that reason was, most of the time it was because they were leaving for pay. They were leaving for pay in a difference of $4,000 or $5,000. And so in a very short amount of time, we had to do something to change that, because the city of Atlanta cannot be put at risk because we were losing firefighters. And so in 2019, we conducted a pay study that was an independent pay study, and it looked at what was every municipality around us making alongside other nationwide fire departments, and what could we do to help maintain firefighters here locally. And so in 2019, Mayor Bottoms, alongside the fire chief and myself, we actually passed the very first pay raise for the city of Atlanta Fire Department. And so what that means in terms of numbers is that every single rank got a bump in their pay. But the one that was most significant was actually the pay for firefighter. So our firefighters went from being able to make $34,000 a year as a starting salary to now being jumped up to $40,000 as a starting salary. And immediately after that, when you graduate from the training academy, you're making $46,000. So it was almost a $12,000 difference that we were able to legislate and pass back in 2019, which was a huge accomplishment for us. But alongside that, we also realized we needed to start recruiting earlier. We needed to start getting to our high school students. We needed to expose them to careers in the fire service, because careers in the fire service most often than not have very similar benefits to serving in the military. And it is still public service, it's still service back to the community, and can really have a high school to career outlook for you. So we created 2 youth programs. The one that I'm very, very proud of, just because this is actually a program that speaks to my heart as a former Girl Scout employee, is Camp Ignite. And Camp Ignite is a camp that takes place twice a year. And it just takes young women and it partners them with our female firefighters, so that young women can see there are female firefighters out there, and there are female firefighters in very high ranking ranks across the organization, and that they can do it too. So we take them for 3 days and show them exactly what it looks like to be a female firefighter, and we show them that they can do the job too. And then we have our AFRD cadet program, which is offered on Saturdays every other week. And it's co-ed, and it just shows our high school students what it takes to apply for the fire department immediately after they graduate high school. And the reason why that is important is because in the city of Atlanta, most of our schools in the west side and in the south side of the city have very low post-high school college enrollment rate. The highest that we're seeing right now is 20%. So that means that there is 80% of students that are not going to college, and they still need a path to success, and they still need a path to a career. And we are more than happy to offer them one. So our cadet program shows them what it takes to get physically ready so that you can apply for the fire department and get hired immediately after graduation. And then alongside that, we also created our first ERG, which stands for Employee Resource Group, which is for women in the fire service. And this speaks truly to my heart, in that it's just an opportunity for me to celebrate the women in our fire department, all their breaking down of barriers that they do, every stereotype that they debunk, and everything that they get to do across the organization, because we truly have the most marvelous female firefighters in the city of Atlanta. So just this month, at the end of the month, I will be taking them for a dinner celebration where I get to highlight them and just let them know that we are here for them as well. Let's see. So a little bit about the fire department, just and this is just setting the standard. I wanted to share this with you because a lot of our community doesn't know this. The fire department is one of those very few public safety careers that you actually need very little to join the career itself. So in order to become a firefighter, you just have to be 18 years old. You have to have a driver's license, a high school diploma, or a GED, and you have to be able to pass the physical agility test, which is about 10 minutes. And most of our high school students can truly pass it with little to no effort at all. And what are the benefits of that? If you become a firefighter and you come through the city of Atlanta, right as you actually enter the department. This is actually why you train. You are being paid while you train and earn your certification a $40,000 annual salary. And again, once you actually finish the academy, you'll be making 46,000 immediately. But the fire department, once you become a firefighter, you also get paid to continue your certifications and your licenses and to go to school. So my foundation, if you want to go through training to teach you how to be a high ropes firefighter or a swift water rescue firefighter, we will pay you to go get those certifications and licenses. And those certifications and licenses, they're not just local, they're national. You can actually transfer them anywhere you go. And if you want to go to college, if you want to get an associate's degree, a bachelor's degree, or even a master's degree, the foundation will actually give you the tuition dollars to go back to school. We want to make sure that you come to work feeling your best self. But we also understand that while I may feel like $4,000 is a lot of our community doesn't feel that way. The city of Atlanta is expensive. It's expensive to live in the metro Atlanta region. So we want to give you money to go get these things. Once you get these things, the fire department actually provides you with a salary incentive on top of your base pay once you get these things. So if you become a swift water rescue firefighter, you're now making more money on top of your base salary. If you get a degree, you're now making more money on top of your base salary. And your base salary is based upon what rank you are in the organization. And then once you retire, you're fully vested with your pension at just 10 years, but you can retire with 20 years of service or 30 years of service and retire with full benefits from the city of Atlanta. So you can truly be a firefighter, retire in your 40s or 50s, and then go on to have yet a second career and be completely successful in a second career as well. Now, a little, and I should have added this, what most people don't know about firefighters is that firefighters only work 10 days a month. You are working every third day. We have 3 shifts and they're 24 hours. You come in at 7 a.m. and you leave at 7 a.m. the next day. So they're truly 24 hours. And so for our young students and our young community and our millennials, making a $40,000 salary for only working 10 days a month is really not bad at all. So I want to talk now that we're really getting into the gist of women's history. I want to talk about why that's so important in the fire industry in itself. So our firefighters, and this is really a regional approach, firefighters really do respond to almost 100% of all 911 calls when you call 911 in need of an emergency. Because in the metro Atlanta region, every single firefighter is also fully trained as an EMT. So when you go through the academy, you go through an EMT school first, you finish that and graduate, and then you become an actual firefighter. So when you call because you've had a car accident, a firefighter is going to show up. Or if you're having a heart attack, a firefighter from the fire department is going to show up. So it's not that you are calling an ambulance service, you are truly calling someone from your fire department. But from the fire department, we are still 96% male. We have very, very few females across the country. And in the city of Atlanta, we're actually higher numbers than the rest of the country, where we have 5% female. I feel like that's not enough. And on top of still being male dominated, we're still majority white across the country, and we're still very much Christian across the country. Now, Atlanta Fire is a little bit different than that, in that we are a little bit different in terms of race composition. We have 65 African American percentage in the fire department locally. And we have one of the largest numbers of females, with about 46 females in the fire department right now out of 1,100. And that started back in 1977 when our first class of 7 females joined the fire department. And if you are into the hip hop culture or rap culture at all, it's really neat to know that the rapper artist CeeLo Green, his mom was actually one of the very first female firefighters for the city of Atlanta. Now, as a fire department, we are also incredibly paramilitary. So if you have grown up with or been married to or know someone in the military, the fire department works exactly the same. We are very chain of command structure. And so for the fire department, because we're still heavily male dominated, it means that a lot of times I still get comments about, I don't believe that women should be part of the fire service. Having women part of the fire service for a lot of people still feels like we are lessening our standards. So from the foundation's perspective, we say, listen, if we can graduate women from the West Point Academy every year, or we have women that are graduating from the Marine Corps of the United States, we can graduate women firefighters. They have every single capability to have the standards to meet them, and they do meet them, and they exceed them, and they become amazing executives later on in their career. But as a whole, as an industry, we really struggle with embracing diversity. And it's not just race and it's not just gender. Even in how our fire stations are built, we still have bunk rooms where you have one open bunk room where men and women share the same facilities. There's absolutely no privacy in that. So when we talk about diversity from an LGBTQ perspective, it's something that we have to address. We also still have, for females, we have to think about the fact that our uniforms that the firefighters wear, they're uniforms that were designed and created for men. So they look very different on a female body. And then the people that we think are the ultimate firefighters, they're really, and I hate to say this, the badasses in the organization or the adrenaline junkies are the ones that are hyper masculine in their personas. And so we are working very diligently, are trying to redefine what does a firefighter really look like and what do they represent to the communities that they serve. So here is a little bit about my journey and just what I've had to learn in working with firefighters and being an outsider and sometimes being the only. So a little bit again about my role. I work leading the nonprofit that supports the fire department. So my job is really to work side by side with the mayor for the city of Atlanta and to work with the fire chief for the city of Atlanta. And the way that we do that is truly by identifying what are those areas that are priorities for public safety for the city. But when I get to do that type of work, 99 to 100% of the time, I am the only person of Hispanic or Latino descent. I am the only young person. Most people are usually older than me by 10 to 20 years. I am also the only female in the room. I am the only non firefighter in the room. And most often than not, if we really were to just look very closely at credentials, education, and background and professional experience, I usually hold the largest amounts of credentials behind me. So I'm very, very used to being the only in a large setting where my job is to work and represent firefighters. And that only works against me very often because the person that leads the police foundation in the city of Atlanta, and they work on the law enforcement side of advocating for police officers, they actually represent exactly what you think of a police officer. He is a former police officer himself. He used to actually be a Secret Service lead for the United States President's office. He's also white, he's older, and he's also male. So when I came on board to lead this organization, they had never truly seen or embodied or embraced someone that looked or felt like me. So what does my job really do? And what is it that I have to do, and what does it my day really look like on a day-to-day basis? And again, my title is I have to be the first responder to the first responder. But in order for me to do that very often, I feel like I am an investigative journalist. I am going to go into the fire department to find out what is happening, for what reasons, and what can we do about it. And so I have to do a lot of research, but my job is centered around two things. What makes people want to come to the fire department? What interests them? What motivates them? Is it the uniform? Is it the public service aspect? Is it the salary? Is it that they only want to work 10 days a month? And I have to be able to embrace that and get all of that knowledge together, especially as it continues to change amongst the generations. But for the firefighters that are inside the department, I have to understand what makes them stay. Is it that they feel like they have the opportunity to get their education? Or is it that they like the adrenaline of still fighting fires? Or they love being an EMT and now they want to be a paramedic for the fire department? Is it that they ultimately want to become a fire chief? I have to understand that. And then I have to be able to align budgets to create opportunities for people not only to come to our fire department, but also to stay with our fire department for the city of Atlanta. And very often I get the really cool question of asking people, if money was no issue, what would you do with it? How would you better our city? How would you better our fire department? How would you do this better personally? And so once I get those answers, I now have to go find the money. The city of Atlanta budget is not infinite. It doesn't always cover every priority. It doesn't even sometimes cover necessities and emergencies like the ones that we saw during COVID. So my job is to work with the private corporate community as well as with the local community to help find the funds so that we can give firefighters the resources that they need to answer those issues that we were talking about earlier. But very often, like yesterday, I got to talk to Natalie about this. I get to just have the job of feeding firefighters. And if you have a firefighter in your life or have ever met them, feeding firefighters is the way to their soul. I get to learn so much about them personally, so much about what they think about, what they want out of life, their spouses at home. And so yesterday we were actually just doing an appreciation luncheon with a corporate partner of ours where this was their service project. We got to go out and feed our firefighters and have a cookout for them. But in addition to that, the very fun thing that I get to do is I get to plan events that brings our community out to fire stations and out to our firefighters so that when you say, hey, that my station is station 21, you don't just say my station is station 21. You get to say, hey, my captain is Captain Atkins, or I have Sergeant Mallory, or I have Lieutenant Davidson. We want you to know who these firefighters are. We want you to have a relationship with them so that in the event you ever need them, you don't feel like you're a stranger. We want them to be your friend, we want them to be your neighbor, and we want them to ultimately have a relationship with you. Um, I've also had my challenges. Working with firefighters is not always easy. Being the only for a lot of reasons, it's not very easy all the time. And again, a lot of my job is focusing on what's not going right so that we can fix them. And that also sometimes takes a toll. But what I would tell you is a lot of what has led to my success goes back to my educational background at Georgia State. It goes back to really my desire to work in nonprofits. It goes back to my desire to be a difference and a change agent through my Girl Scout years, because I was a Girl Scout almost all of my life. And it's truly centered around the fact that I just care about people. I want people to feel safe. I want people to be their very best. And I want people to have what they need to be their best selves and to live the lives that they want to live. And for our firefighters, a lot of them, they just want to be firefighters. They just want to serve you. And so we want to give them the resources they need to actually just do that. I've also realized later on in my career that what got me here is not what's going to keep me here. So let me kind of reflect on that a little bit. I am very, very fiery. I move 1,000 miles a minute. I am Latina in that respect, and I am also a mom. So we move 1,000 times. And that busyness is what's made me successful up until this point. But I've realized it's not what's going to keep me here later on. And so I'm in a place where I've started to focus much more on my physical health, on my mental health, and just taking the time to also slow down and appreciate what we've accomplished. I also believe that every time you have an opportunity to do so, you should show up and show out, and truly do your best and do the job that you were hired to do. But my job also requires me to be highly innovative. The fire department is a culture where they're very, very used to continuing to do things just because that's the way that they've always done them. Well, our communities look very different. We are not just fighting fires anymore. So 50 years ago, our fire department calls were about 90% just fires. Now we're the total opposite of that. We're 80% medical calls and 20% fires. So we have to continue to innovate so that we can continue to serve our communities in the way that they need us. So I have to think on my feet all the time and just be innovative. But I joked earlier with Natalie that if you have kids, kids help you do this. And they let you know when you're getting old or when you're just not up on Snapchat or Instagram. And so I've realized that technology is my best friend. I have to embrace it. And I love just thinking out of the box. But alongside thinking out of the box, I've also have benefited greatly from finding myself mentors and coaches and allies in this industry that just allows me to also speak to them in times of need or to consult with them when I can't figure something out on myself or when I just need to just say, hey, can you just tell me what this sounds like and let me know if there's any gaps in my plan. But most importantly to myself, I bring the fire I have in my belly every day. I feel like if these firefighters can get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go fight a fire, to go save someone's life, I can do the same for them.
Great. Thank you so much. This does conclude the main portion of our presentation. We want to thank Shirley Anne again. Thank you so much for taking the time today to share your amazing story with us and give us some very helpful advice and some things to think about. And of course, we want to thank all of you for joining us as well. We will now move into our Q&A portion of our presentation, and we actually have a lot of great pre-submitted questions for you, Shirley Anne, so I hope you're ready. So first, why is diversification important to you personally and also in your field? And that can be diversity in the terms of gender, race, or culture.
So I'm going to answer it in two parts. So the reason why diversity is so important in the fire department is because our community looks very different, and also because the type of calls that we are seeing are very different. Again, we are moving away from not just being fire. We are now fire. We're also medical response. And to some degree, we're also homeland security. So when you see the Super Bowl here in the city of Atlanta, a lot of the times you see firefighters around because they're just around in the event that something happens. We would never want something like what took place in the Olympics, but if it does, we want you to know we are prepared, we are ready, and they will be there to respond. So because the type of calls has changed, it means that the type of firefighter needs to change. Right now, we are realizing that patient care has been redefined. And a lot of our female patients, while they will never tell a guy, no, don't take care of me, don't save a life, what we've realized is that a lot of times, especially if they have internal wounds or anything that's on their bodies, they want to be provided for by a female. They want to be taken care of by a female firefighter. It's just easier for them. They feel more comfortable in that sense. And so that's why women in the fire service is so important. And then we're also seeing that from a language perspective. As the metro Atlanta region continues to really diversify, we're seeing more languages being represented in our communities. And so right now, how it is today, for example, if you had someone from my family who's a first generation here and that most of them do not speak fluent English, the way that a firefighter would respond to that if they don't speak their language is that they have to call back to dispatch, wait for a translator to jump onto dispatch or 911, for then to there have a third person trying to translate what that person is needing. If you're having a heart attack or if you're having a stroke, that could make the difference between life or death, or it could possibly make the difference between your point of recovery. We don't want that to happen. We always want the ultimate outcome to be your safety, to be your well-being, for you to go back home to your family. And so having individuals that speak the languages represented in our communities is really important. So it's not for us to say, oh, we want diversity because it just sounds like the right thing to do. No, we need diversity as an industry because that's what we're going to need to save lives. That's what we're going to need to continue to maintain public safety for not just the city of Atlanta, but for the nation as a whole. Now, in terms of why it's important to me, it's because I will tell you, I'm tired. I'm tired of always being the only one. I think diversity for me, it's important because I want to see other people like me in the room. I want to see other women. I want to see other Latino individuals in the room. And what we know is that across the board, no matter what industry you're in, your outcomes, your return on investment, your profits are tend to be higher when you have more diversity represented in your organization. So this is about business sense. And so for me, I'm all about business. And if it makes sense, we want to get it done. But I will tell you, I just think it's time. I think it's time. And I think that our minority communities are also demanding more representation. And I want to be part of that change. And that's why it's so important to me.
Great. Well, you touched on this a little bit, but what is the importance of having females in your industry and in any industry for that matter?
Yeah, so I would tell you, so it's 2022 now. We have many, many fire agencies across the country. I would say hundreds of them. And we only have about 7 female fire chiefs across the country total. And that has been a very, very recent change. In 2019, when I launched Camp Ignite, which was the girls' camp, there was only one female fire chief in the world, and she's the female fire chief out of Decatur, the city of Decatur here in Georgia. And it's Chief Tony Washington. Since 2019, we've gone from 1 to about 7, and 3 of those female fire chiefs are actually here in the Metro Atlanta region. You have Chief McDaniel out in Rockdale, you have Chief Washington, and then you have Chief Willis. And we have some that are closely to follow in the next couple of years. So the reason why women are important is because we have young women who are interested in this career, but they feel like it's not possible because they don't see themselves. They've never seen a female in a fire truck. To me, there is not any more of a beautiful thing to not just see a female firefighter, but to see a female firefighter driving a fire truck. It is truly the quintessential image of what we believe is empowerment and what you can achieve. And so for us, we want to make sure that women in our female population, from a medical perspective, continues to be represented. But it's also because we just believe it that women can do this job. And so if they can do it, then we just want to empower them to be able to do it.
Great. So what hurdles have you personally encountered to get to where you are today?
So the list is many. I will tell you, the fire industry is not a culture that changes very quickly, especially because it is still a government agency. And again, it's in the fire department here in the city of Atlanta, we have 5 generations. So we have people as young as 18 to generations and individuals that are still working in their 60s and 70s. And so what I would tell you is that it's always really interesting to work across all those organizations. But I get it all. I get how do you think you can make the fire department better when you have not been a firefighter yourself? Or how can you tell this man what to do when you're a female? Or how do you feel like you can change public safety when you haven't been in this industry for this long? Because a lot of them, their tenure is what builds their rank. It's what builds their credibility. And so they're like, oh, you just been around 5 years, so you don't know enough. So I've certainly seen the barriers from every single angle, from any single lens or perspective. Um, and what I will tell you is, and this is just very true to who I am as a Girl Scout. It doesn't matter where you put me. We will always rise to the top and we will always fix the issue. A lot of that is also the mom in me. I cannot pass by a problem and just ignore it. I have to find out what's the problem and also fix it. And very often I want to be the one to be part of that. And so I just say I've experienced it all, but my passion for what I do always far exceeds the barriers that have been presented in front of me.
And what challenges do you still face today?
Money. One of the biggest challenges that we see today is just the economic impact that we've had as a result of COVID. Budgets just don't look the same anymore. And even from the philanthropic side, we are not seeing the amount of support for firefighters as we did initially during the onset of the pandemic. And here's what I would say in terms of challenges that we see today. City of Atlanta is a very law enforcement based city. We are very quick to thank and appreciate and show gratitude for law enforcement. But very often when we think about public safety, we leave out firefighters out of that conversation. And public safety is not just law enforcement. It's firefighters, it's the 911 dispatchers, it's your ambulance service providers. Public safety includes and encompasses a lot of agencies. And I can only speak for the fire agency because that's the space I'm in. But it's challenging because we can say, people are very quick to say, oh, we'll support our police officers, but they're not as quick to say, we'll support our firefighters. So very often I get the challenge of, well, why should we? Well, shouldn't our tax dollars, support them? Well, the reality is the tax dollars and the revenue that the city of Atlanta sees, it will never be enough to the amount of need that we see to continue to be innovative and to continue to put safety first for the community we serve.
So why do you think it's taken this long for the fire department to get to where it is today in terms of diversity and female inclusion?
Yeah, I will tell you, it was not anything of their doing. The community in itself really has pushed for diversity. They truly have asked the right questions. Even when Black firefighters integrated back in 1963 with the city of Atlanta, I've actually had the honor and the pleasure of meeting some of the initial Black firefighters. They fought every step of the way. And they fought their way in. And we're so very thankful that they did, because we are one of the only fire departments in the country that's majority minority. And it just shows the rich civil history movement, civil rights history movement that we had here in the city of Atlanta. But I will tell you, our community demands more and they deserve more. And so I think that the fire department now sees, okay, in order for us to still be a fire department, in order for us to still meet our mission, in order for us to still serve the people, we have to look like the people. We have to be able to serve them and ask them the right questions. And so I'm glad, even though it didn't happen the way I would want them to, for them to have been proactive, I'm just glad that the community called us out on it. And then it's been a nationwide movement. And if you've never watched the movie about the first female firefighters in New York, it will make you cry. I mean, these female firefighters talked about how their male counterparts would pee in their boots. They went through all sorts of harassment, but they went through that pain and they forced the departments to be better. And now we have more female firefighters in the industry than ever before. And we've seen a lot of that transition even in the military. And so no matter how we got there, I'm just glad that we did. And I'm glad that the city of Atlanta has truly, truly embraced just the value and the beauty it brings when we bring diversity from every aspect, because it has to be diversity of race, diversity of gender, diversity of religion. It all has to be diverse, diversity of opinion. And we represent that pretty richly here in the city.
Now, what stigmas or myths of strength are there when it comes to female firefighting?
Yeah, the one that I get the most is, so if I'm a fire victim, how is a female firefighter going to drag me out? It's always kind of equated to a lack of strength. And what I will tell you is, most of our female firefighters, they almost all outdo the men. Their male counterparts, they are really, really good at what they do. But the one really unique thing about firefighting is, it's never a single person's effort. You always have duos and teams go into any fire scene or any medical rescue. You have more than one person do it. But I will tell you, 100% of the female firefighters for the city of Atlanta, not only have they passed the physical test, but they can really outcompete most of their counterparts. And they do it out of a sheer love and passion for what they do. So most of what I get is, well, can they really lift me up? And my answer is absolutely, watch them. I will put you on the floor and let them show you you want them to.
That's great to hear. So the best question of all, what recommendations do you have for females to get a seat at the table, so to speak, in male-dominated fields or companies?
Yeah, so I'm a little fiery in my response, and I'm unapologetic about it. And what I will say is demand your seat. Demand your seat. And it's not even very often demanding your seat, is you have to have your seat at the table. And someone recently said to me that when you're not at the table, the decisions will be made for you. And so a lot of times we have to show up and we have to demand our seat, and we have to be able to actually know what is it that we want to ask or help change once we get there as well. It's not just having the seat. We have to continue to ask for help and assistance in wanting to demand the change moving forward. So my recommendation is demand your seat. Always show up and show out. Know exactly what it is that you want to change. But most importantly, I just think it's the best advice I could give anyone is make sure that however you show up, it is the best representation of you.
And our last pre-submitted question for you, what opportunities are there for us to get more involved with your organization or give back to our firefighters?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have an amazing event every year called Breakfast with Our Bravest, and it is exactly that. You get to go to the Georgia Aquarium and have breakfast alongside firefighters. This year will be May 4th of 2022 at 7:30 a.m. Yes, it's very early. Again, it's breakfast time, and that's when our firefighters eat. But if you will join us at the Georgia Aquarium, you can purchase a ticket online and join us for the event. What I would tell you is if you're looking for something a little bit more granular, we always invite you to come out and do a service project as a company or as a group or a church group and just cook out for the firefighters. They love it. A meal that they don't have to prepare, where they can just get to sit down and eat and be in fellowship with you. They love it. And then what I would say last but not least is whenever you see one, just let them know who you are and tell them thank you for what they do.
We will move on to our upcoming important dates here on the screen. As always, this recording will be made available tomorrow afternoon on Workplace. And on Wednesday, we do have our new Tiny Pulse question for you. And if you haven't already, please do answer our Tiny Pulse question from this week on what organizations you would like to see us volunteer with as a part of our new quarterly volunteer program. Hopefully someone's going to chime in with some great fire station recommendations there for us. We definitely want to hear your opinion. And don't forget, next Friday, we will host our first quarter volunteer day at the Unearthing Farm from 10 to 3. You should have received a calendar invite for that event. And we do kindly ask that you RSVP through the invite so we can get an accurate count for lunch. If you have any allergies or dietary restrictions, please send those to me as well. And last, a friendly reminder to please complete our financial literacy series survey that we sent out last week. Again, even if you weren't able to join us for that series, there's still a few questions there that we would love for you to answer for us. And a link to that survey can actually be found on the Greenleaf Connect Workplace page in case you need it. And for our Greenleaf Connect schedule, today we kicked off our March series and our next 3 sessions being held on legal literacy with attorney Charlene Green, where we're going to discuss estate planning, wills, and trusts. We do have some new deal presentations teed up for March, but we're just waiting for a few date confirmations on those. And as soon as we have those, we will send them out through the calendar invites. And last but not least, our friendly reminder to log into Kudo for our professional development programs. Definitely some exciting stuff on there for you. If you have any questions about the systems or the programs, please reach out to me directly. I'm happy to help. So again, thank you for your participation today. And
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing everyone next week as we kick off our legal literacy series. Thanks again and enjoy your day.